Well, all eyes are on Donald Trump and Washington. The inauguration ceremony today, it's no different here in Germany. Here to talk about Donald Trump is Jürgen Trittin. He's a member of the German Bundestag for the Green Party, also sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Good morning. And we have Markus, Kaim, security expert with the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Thank you, gentlemen, both of you, to being with us this morning. Let's start with you, Mr. Trittin. Do you have any positive expectations of Donald Trump's presidency?
I think we have to wait to see any positive aspects. I think the main road he's walking on is that he is starting with a new economic unilateralism. After the neoconservative unilateralism in the Bush times, Barack Obama was targeting and more to cooperation, international cooperation, and Trump is now underway to economic confrontation from cooperation, and it will create problems for the policy, but also for the economics of Europe.
We'll talk about some of those anticipated problems in a moment. Many politicians in Germany and elsewhere are skeptical about the Trump presidency, but he is someone you're going to have to work with. As you say, you have to wait and see. Chancellor Merkel knows this very well. Let's listen to what she has had to say in the run-up to the inauguration.
Germany and America are connected by values, democracy, freedom, respect for the law and for the dignity of human beings, independent of origin, skin color, religion, gender, sexual orientation or political views. On the basis of these values, I am offering the future President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, close cooperation.
So, Mr. Trittin, what do you think? Do you think Donald Trump shares the values that Chancellor Merkel was outlining there, the values enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, for example?
I'm not convinced that he really shares any value without to make a good deal. But I think the Chancellor was right, as she said, this is the basis where we cooperate from our economic interests as well as from on the basis of our values.
Okay, values are key. Markus, with Trump taking over in the U.S., Chancellor Merkel has been described by some as the last defender of the liberal West. That's obviously a description she doesn't feel too comfortable about with. How do you see it?
I think maybe two ideas about it. First, I think it's correct to see the West is under fire currently from all sides, from the West as from the East. The West is under fire, meaning the liberal values which have, so to speak, ruled the world for the last 25 years are not given anymore. And we see the rise of populist parties around the world who maybe to a certain degree openly reject Western values. But on the other hand, I think Angela Merkel will be very hesitant to accept this role which you just described. However, I think when we talk about a future European role in the world, however it might look like, at least currently we talk about some kind of leadership in Europe, and not because not Germany is so strong, because others are weaker than a couple of years ago. The UK is about to leave the European Union. France is, at least for the time being, more inward-looking than outward-looking. That might change in the next years to come. So the German leadership role is only a snapshot but I think for the first month and maybe 2 years of the Trump administration, I think Angela Merkel and the government will be key.
And Germany, it must be said, is also facing a right-wing populist movement itself. So Chancellor Merkel has quite a bit of pressure on her from many sides. Now, most analysts, when they talk about Donald Trump and what is predictable about him, they say it's his unpredictability. It's very, very difficult to say what he's going to do next. Let's listen to what German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier had to say.
Nothing is going to get easier. A lot will get harder. But I'm convinced that good transatlantic relations are the foundation of the Western world. And that's why we shouldn't give up that foundation.
So on the question of transatlantic relations, Markus, what do you think is going to get harder?
I think what we see is the turn from an internationalist policy, U.S. foreign policy of the last 60, 70 years to more nationalist policy, and that leaves some kind of strategic vacuum in international affairs, which could already be seen in Syria, in the Middle East, in Central Eastern Europe. Some kind of withdrawal of the United States from the world under the Obama administration. This strategic vacuum has been filled by others to a certain degree, by Russia, by China. And the key question for the Europeans is, are they going to fill it at least to a certain degree? I don't expect Europe to be a major player in terms of global affairs. I think nobody expects Europe to be a player in the South China Sea. But at least for the European neighborhood, and will be the key question for the European foreign policy for the years to come.
Okay, a strategic vacuum, a possible return to ethno-nationalism, many analysts are saying. Mr. Trittin, how do you see it? What's going to get harder in transatlantic relations the way that Frank-Walter Steinmeier was predicting?
In history, the Europeans and the US shared not only on paper common values, because the West is under fire since Guantanamo, Abu Ghraib on that, but mainly the basis have been common interest. And one of the common interests were open market and free trade. And what I see is a new economic approach by Donald Trump. He deregulated the financial industry, taking back all the measures after the financial crisis. And on the other hand, in the classical manufacturing industry, he is a fan of being more of a protective policy. And that's the real challenge for the Europeans and especially for Germans. We are focused on open markets, but on the other hand, we are in a strong position. We can't ignore the US market, but US companies as well can't ignore the largest market of the world, and that is the European Union with, after Brexit, 440 citizens.
Okay, very important, obviously, for Germany as a big exporting nation, too. I want to talk briefly about NATO, because Donald Trump has been commenting on NATO. He's described it as obsolete, but important, trying to have both ways. I know your own Green Party has reconciled itself with the necessity of NATO in recent years. How do you see Donald Trump's view on NATO and what it means for Europe?
It's an open question I have on that. The assumably new Minister for Defense is a fan of NATO matters, and even the new Foreign Minister, Secretary of State Tillerson, has not shared the position of the campaign of Donald Trump. But at the end, we have to wait. What is the development within? I think that the Europeans have their own responsibility. We have to care on the crises in our neighborhoods. And we have to be very clear on that. For example, to deliver arms, for example, into Ukraine will create problems for the Minsk process. We have to be very clear on that we don't want to accept. We don't want this form of spoiler in our direct neighborhood. And we have to take responsibility. For example, in the crisis of Libya. This is a European affair. This is not a US affair.
Okay, just to wrap it up very quickly, Markus, how do you see NATO under Trump? Is it threatened, or could it be strengthened?
I think the key question is the one Mr. Trittin just mentioned. I think it does make sense for the Europeans simply to wait and see for the Trump administration to act. I think the Europeans have to get their things together, and probably we'll have a NATO summit in spring of this year, and this will be the first opportunity for the Trump administration to present their ideas and concepts for NATO.
Markus, Kaim, Jürgen, Trittin, thank you both very much for being with us. We'll be talking about Donald Trump's inauguration throughout the day and getting lots more insights for you. Do stay with us here on DW News as we follow the Trump inauguration throughout the day. Thanks for watching.